Uncle, I have been waiting for this day. I want to thank you for everything you have done for me. Without you, I wouldn't be here. Dele chuckled. You have done all the hard work, Tunde. I only gave you a little push. It was more than a push, Tunde said. You gave me a hope when I have none, and now I want to honor you. In the bustling city of Lagos, where the streets were alive with the honking of cars, the shouts of bus conductors, and the laughter of children playing, there lived a small boy named Tunde. At just 12 years old, Tunde had learned the harsh reality of life. He had no father to guide him, no mother to comfort him, and no siblings to share his burden. Tunde was alone, but he carried himself with a quiet determination. Every morning, before the sun rose fully in the sky, Tunde would wake up from his tiny corner in a crowded alley. His home was a flattened cardboard box covered with an old cloth he had found one rainy evening. Next to him was a small sack bag holding his few belongings, a torn shirt, a pair of slippers, and a plastic cup. This was all Tunde had in the whole world, but he didn't let it break his spirit. As the city began to stir, Tunde would grab his tray of puff-puff, a sweet golden brown snack made from a fried dough, and balance it carefully on his head. With a loud, cheerful voice, he walked through the busy streets calling, "Puff puff! Fresh hot puff puff! Come and buy!" His voice was full of energy, even though his stomach often rumbled with hunger. Tunde's job wasn't easy. Some days, people bought the puff puff eagerly, smiling and praising its taste. Other days, he worked for hours with few sales, and his leg ached from the weight of the tray. At the end of each day, he would return to the woman who supplied the puff-puff on credit. After paying her, he was left with only a small amount of money, barely enough to buy a simple meal of rice and beans. But Tunde had a dream. Whenever he passed by a school, he stopped to watch the children in their neat uniforms, carrying books and laughing with friends. One day, he whispered to himself, "I will go to school too." He imagined sitting in the classroom, learning how to read and write, and answering questions from a teacher. The thought filled him with hope. When Tunde wasn't selling puff-puff, he searched for other ways to earn money. He often collected plastic bottles from the streets, carefully picking them up from gutters and market stalls. He sold the bottles to recyclers, earning a few extra coins. To others, the bottles were trash, but to Tunde, they were treasures. Each one brought him closer to his dream. One day, as Tunde was collecting bottles near a market, he stumbled upon a small classroom. He heard a teacher's voice coming through the open window, speaking words that sounded important and magical. Quietly, Tunde stood outside, listening to the lesson. The teacher was explaining maths, and although Tunde didn't understand much, he was fascinated. That night, lying on his cardboard bed, Tunde couldn't stop thinking about the classroom. "I will go to school," he thought firmly. "I will learn, no matter how hard I have to work." And so, Tunde's days became even busier. He sold puff-puff, collected bottles, and saved every naira he could. He skipped meals when he had to, dreaming of the day he would sit in a classroom. His tiny savings grew slowly but surely, and with each coin he added, his hope grew brighter. Though life was tough, Tunde never gave up. His journey had just begun, and he was determined to turn his small steps into a big meaningful future. Tunde's morning were the same as always, balancing a tray of puff-puff on his head, calling out to customers in the crowded streets of Lagos. But inside his heart, something had changed. He wasn't just working to survive anymore. He was working to achieve a dream. Every naira he earned was carefully saved, tucked away in a small tin box he had hidden under a pile of old clothes in his corner. After months of saving, Tunde finally had enough money to buy a second-hand school uniform and a pair of worn shoes from the market. The uniform was a little too big, and the shoes pinched his toes, but Tunde didn't mind. He couldn't wait to take his first step into a classroom. One sunny morning, Tunde stood in front of a small neighborhood school. The building was old, with peeling paint and broken windows, but to Tunde, it looked like a palace. He clutched his savings tightly in his hand and walked up to the headmistress' office. The headmistress, a kind woman named Mrs. Adebola, looked at Tunde curiously. "Good morning, ma," Tunde greeted, bowing slightly. "I want to enroll in your school, ma." Mrs. Adebola raised an eyebrow. "Where are your parents, young boy? And who will pay your school fees?" Tunde's hand trembled, but he held out the crumpled note he had saved. "I have been working hard, ma. I sell puff-puff and collect bottles. This is all the money I have, but I promise I will work harder to pay the rest. Please, ma, I want to learn." Mrs. Adebola stared at him for a moment, then softened. She could see the determination in his eyes. "Do you have anyone to sign your admission form? A guardian or a relative?" Tunde shook his head. "No, ma, it's just me." The headmistress sighed. "Well, education is not just about money. It's about the desire to learn. If you promise to work hard, I will allow you to start school. We will figure out the rest later." Tunde's face lit up with a smile. "Thank you, ma. I promise I will work very hard." That same day, Tunde joined a class of children around his age. He sat in the back of the classroom, his hand folded neatly on the desk. The other kids stared at him, noticing his oversized uniform and tired face. But Tunde didn't care. He was finally in school. The teacher, Mr. Okafor, began to lesson on addition and subtraction. Tunde listened intently, scribbling notes in his borrowed notebook. He struggled to keep up at first, as other children seemed to understand much faster, but he didn't let it discourage him. At the end of the day, as the other children ran home, rushing and chatting, Tunde stayed behind to meet Mr. Okafor. "Sir, I want to learn more," Tunde said. "Can you help me understand today's lesson?" Mr. Okafor smiled. "Of course, Tunde, I will teach you. But you must promise me one thing: never give up, no matter how hard it seems." "I promise, sir," Tunde replied firmly. From that day on, Tunde's life became a balancing act. He woke up early to sell puff-puff, went to school during the day, and returned to collect bottles in the evening. He often stayed up late, using the dim light of a street lamp to finish his homework. Though it was exhausting, Tunde felt happier than he had in years. He was learning new things every day: how to read, write, and solve math problems. He even made a few friends in his class who admired his hard work and cheerful attitude. One evening, as Tunde sat under the street lamp solving a math problem, a stranger approached him. The man was tall, with a kind face and a briefcase in his hand. "Hello, young boy," the stranger said. "Why are you studying in the dark?" Tunde looked up and smiled. "I don't have a proper home, sir, but I want to learn, so I study here." The man nodded thoughtfully. "You have a strong spirit. Keep working hard, and one day your effort will pay off." "Thank you, sir," Tunde replied, feeling encouraged. As the man walked away, Tunde felt a renewed sense of hope. He didn't know what the future held, but he was determined to keep pushing forward. For the first time in a long time, he believed that his dream of building a better life was within reach. Tunde's first week in school was like stepping into a new whole world. The classroom was filled with the sound of children reading aloud, the chalk scratching on the blackboard, and the teacher's patient explanations. Tunde soaked in every moment, but he quickly realized that learning was not going to be easy as he had imagined. He struggled to keep up with the lessons. His classmates, who had been in school for years, already knew how to read fluently and solve basic math problems. Tunde, on the other hand, had never held a pencil properly until now. His handwriting was shaky, and he found it hard to understand some of the lessons. One afternoon, during English class, the teacher, Mr. Okafor, asked the students to read a short paragraph from their textbooks. When it was Tunde's turn, he stood up nervously. He stared at the page, but the words seemed to dance before his eyes. "Take your time, Tunde," Mr. Okafor said gently. Tunde tried his best, but his voice faltered as he mispronounced several words. The class erupted into giggles. Tunde felt his face grow hot with embarrassment. He wanted to run out of the classroom, but Mr. Okafor raised his hand, silencing the laughter. "Quiet, everyone," the teacher said firmly. "Tunde is doing his best, and that is what matters. Remember, all of you were once a beginner too." After class, Mr. Okafor called Tunde aside. "Don't feel bad about today," he said. "Learning takes time, and you have already taken a big step by coming to school. I am proud of you." "Thank you, sir," Tunde said, his voice trembling. "I just wish I could be as good as the others." "You will be," Mr. Okafor assured him. "But you need extra practice. Come early tomorrow, and I will give you some extra lessons." Tunde nodded gratefully. "I will be here, sir." The next morning, Tunde arrived at the school before the sun was fully up. True to his word, Mr. Okafor was waiting for him. They sat together in the empty classroom. As the teacher patiently explained how to sound out words and solve some math problems, Tunde listened carefully, practicing until he got it right. The extra lessons became a daily routine. Mr. Okafor even gave Tunde an old dictionary and a notebook to help him study at home. Slowly but surely, Tunde began to improve. He still struggled sometimes, but his determination never wavered. Meanwhile, Tunde's classmates started to notice his hard work. One day, during a lunch break, a boy named Emeka walked up to him. "You are really trying, Tunde," Emeka said. "Do you want me to help you with reading?" Tunde's eyes lit up. "Yes, please, that would be great." From that day on, Emeka became Tunde's first real friend in the school. They sat together during breaks, with Emeka helping Tunde pronounce difficult words and practice his handwriting. Slowly, the other kids began to warm up to Tunde too. They admired his dedication and started including him in their games. But Tunde's challenges weren't limited to the classroom. After school, he still had to sell puff-puff and collect bottles to survive. Balancing work and school was exhausting, and there were days when Tunde felt like giving up. One evening, as he was selling puff-puff, a customer handed him a few extra money and said, "Keep this, young boy. I see you working hard every day. Don't stop chasing your dreams." Tunde smiled, his heart swelling with gratitude. Moments like this reminded him why he was working so hard. He wasn't just surviving, he was building a future. By the end of the term, Tunde's hard work had paid off. During the class's end of term assessment, he scored higher than he had ever thought possible. Though he wasn't the best in the class yet, his progress amazed both his teachers and the classmates. Tunde, Mr. Okafor said during the final assembly, "You have shown us all what determination looks like. Keep it up and you will go far in life." As the other students clapped for him, Tunde stood tall, his heart filled with pride. He knew there were still many challenges ahead, but he was ready to face them all. His journey was just beginning, and he was determined to succeed. Tunde's days grew busier with each passing week. His early morning were spent on balancing tray of puff-puff on his head, his afternoon in the classroom, and his evening collecting bottles or studying in the dim light of a street lamp. Despite his challenges, Tunde's spirit remained strong, driven by his dream of becoming someone important. One evening, while searching for bottles near a bus stop, Tunde saw a man sitting on a bench, deep in thought. The man looked up and noticed Tunde picking up bottles from the ground. "Hello, young boy," the stranger said, his voice warm. "What are you doing?" "I'm collecting bottles to sell, sir," Tunde replied politely. The man tilted his head curiously. "Why are you doing this at your age? Don't you have parents?" Tunde hesitated for a moment before answering, "No, sir, I don't have parents, but I'm trying to save money to go to school." The man's expression softened. "What is your name?" "Tunde, sir." "Well, Tunde, my name is Mr. Kola. You remind me of someone I once knew. Someone who worked hard despite many challenges. Would you like to earn some extra money?" Tunde's eyes widened with excitement. "Yes, sir. I will be very grateful." Mr. Kola explained that he ran a small shop nearby and often needed someone to help him with cleaning and organizing. He offered to pay Tunde for a few hours of work each weekend. "I can start this Saturday, sir," Tunde said eagerly. "Good," Mr. Kola replied with a smile. "Come to my shop in the morning and we will get started." That Saturday, Tunde arrived at the shop early, as promised. He swept the floors, arranged the shelves, and helped carry goods from the storage room. Mr. Kola watched him work with admiration. "You are a hard-working boy, Tunde," he said. "If you keep this up, you will achieve great things." "Thank you, sir," Tunde said, feeling a surge of hope. Over the weeks, Tunde and Mr. Kola developed a bond. The man often shared words of wisdom, encouraging Tunde to stay focused in his dreams. Occasionally, he would give Tunde extra money or a small snack to take home. One day, while helping at the shop, Tunde noticed a little girl struggling to carry a heavy bag of rice. Without hesitation, he rushed to help her. "Thank you," the girl said shyly. "My name is Shade. What is your name?" "Tunde," he replied with a smile. Shade was a daughter of a neighboring shop owner. Over time, she and Tunde became friends, often chatting during breaks. Shade admired Tunde's determination and even offered to help him with schoolwork whenever she could. "Tunde," she said one day, "you are an inspiration. Most boys would have given up, but you keep going." "I don't have a choice," Tunde said. "I have to make my life better. Giving up isn't an option." Their friendship grew stronger, and Shade often cheered Tunde on when things got tough. Her encouragement gave him the strength to push through the hardest days. But life wasn't without its challenges. One evening, after a long day of school and work, Tunde returned to his corner in the alley only to find that someone had stolen his savings tin. His heart sank as he realized that months of hard-earned money were gone. Tears filled his eyes, but he refused to be discouraged. "It's just a setback," he told himself. "I will start saving again." The next morning, he shared the incident with Mr. Kola, who looked at him with concern. "Tunde, I am sorry this happened," he said, "but don't lose hope. If you need any help, let me know." "Thank you, sir," Tunde said. "I will be fine. I will work harder to make up for it." Tunde's determination impressed everyone around him. His ability to stay positive in the face of adversity inspired those who knew his story. Little did he know, his resilience was paving the way for even greater opportunities. Tunde's life became a whirlwind of activity. As he juggled school, selling puff-puff, working at Mr. Kola's shop, and collecting bottles, his days were long, and his nights were even longer, spent studying under the faint glow of a street lamp. Despite his struggles, he refused to give up, determined to build a brighter future for himself. One afternoon, after school, Tunde noticed his teacher, Mr. Okafor, waiting for him by the gate. His kind face was serious, and Tunde felt a pang of worry. "Tunde, can we talk for a moment?" Mr. Okafor asked. "Yes, sir," Tunde replied, following him to a quiet corner. Mr. Okafor placed a gentle hand on Tunde's shoulder. "I have noticed how hard you are working, not just in school, but outside as well. You are doing a lot for someone at your age. But, Tunde, I am worried about you." Tunde looked down at his worn-out shoes. "I am fine, sir. I can manage." "I know you are strong," Mr. Okafor said, "but you need to care for yourself too. Balancing school and work is hard, and I don't want you to burn out. Have you thought of focusing on just one thing, either school or work?" Tunde's chest tightened. He had thought about it many times, but the idea of choosing felt impossible. If he stopped working, how would he survive? And if he left school, how would he ever achieve his dreams? "I can't choose, sir," he said quietly. "I need to work to survive, but I also want to learn." Mr. Okafor nodded, understanding the weight of Tunde's dilemma. "I see your point, but remember, Tunde, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. Sometimes, people are willing to support us if we let them." Tunde thought about Mr. Okafor's words as he walked to the market that evening. As he called out to customers, his mind was a whirlwind of thought. He knew he couldn't keep living like this forever, but what could he do? The next day, as Tunde was cleaning shelves at Mr. Kola's shop, he decided to share his thoughts. "Sir, do you think it's possible to do everything at once?" Tunde asked, his voice filled with doubt. Mr. Kola looked up from his ledger. It's not easy, Tunde. Sometimes we have to prioritize what is most important. But I know you, and I believe you will find a way to manage both. But what if I can't? Tunde asked. What if I have to stop school? Mr. Kola frowned. If that ever happens, Tunde, you must promise me one thing. Never give up on your dream. Even if you take a break, make sure you come back to it. Tunde nodded, feeling a mix of hope and fear. He knew he couldn't give up, no matter how hard things got. That evening, as he studied by the street lamp, Shade came by with a small bag of food. Tunde, you look tired, she said, sitting beside him. You need to take a break sometimes. I can't afford to, Tunde said with a faint smile. There is too much to do. Shade sighed. You don't have to do everything alone. You know, my father said you can come to our house anytime if you need any help. Tunde's heart warmed at her kindness. Thank you, Shade. You are a good friend. Despite his exhaustion, Tunde pushed on, but the weight of his responsibility began to take a toll. One day, after working late into the night, he overslept and missed school for the first time. When he arrived the next day, Mr. Okafor noticed the dark circle under his eyes. Tunde, this isn't sustainable, Mr. Okafor said gently. You need to decide what is best for you. Tunde nodded, but deep down, he still didn't know what to do. He prayed silently for strength and guidance, hoping that someone would help him find a way forward. A week later, as Tunde was walking home from school, something unexpected happened. He was passing by a busy street when a sleek black car pulled over beside him. The tinted window rolled down, and a man in a sharp suit leaned out. Tunde, the man called, his voice filled with uncertainty. Tunde stopped, clutching his old school bag tightly. Yes, sir. Do I know you? The man stepped out of his car, his eyes scanning Tunde's face as if searching for a memory. You have grown so much. It's me, Uncle Dele, your father's old friend. Tunde froze, the name unlocking a door in his mind. He remembered hearing about Uncle Dele from his father when he was a little younger, but can't recognize the face anymore. Uncle Dele, Tunde whispered, his voice trembling. I thought you lived far away. I did, Dele said with a smile. I moved back to Lagos recently for work. I can't believe I have found you here. What are you doing, walking around like this? Where is your father? Tunde's face fell. He's gone, sir. He died years ago. I don't have anyone. Dele's expression turned somber. I am so sorry, Tunde. I didn't know. He paused, glancing at Tunde's tattered clothes and worn-out shoes. How have you been surviving? I sell puff-puff, sir, and collect bottles. I'm saving money to go to school. Dele's eyes filled with admiration and sadness. You have been doing all this on your own? You are a brave boy. Tunde nodded, unsure of what else to say. For years, he had dreamed of finding someone who cared about him. Someone who could help him carry the heavy load in his life. Could Uncle Dele be the person? Get inside the car, Dele said suddenly. We are going to talk about this properly. I want to help you. Tunde hesitated. Could he trust this man? But something in Dele's kind eyes reassured him. Slowly, he climbed into the car, clutching his bag tightly. As they drove, Dele asked Tunde questions about his life, how he managed school and work, where he stayed, and what he wanted to achieve. Tunde answered honestly, sharing his struggles and dreams. I am proud of you, Tunde, Dele said after listening. You have done so much with so little, but from now on, you are not alone. I'm going to help you. They stopped at a small restaurant where Dele ordered food for both of them. As Tunde ate, he felt a sense of relief he hadn't felt in years. For once, someone cared about him, and he didn't have to face the world alone. Dele leaned forward. Here is what I'm going to do. I will cover your school fees and buy you proper clothes and supplies. I will also find you a better place to stay. You will focus on your studies, and we will figure out the rest together. Tunde's eyes widened. Really, sir? You will do that for me? Of course, Dele said with a smile. You are now like a family to me, Tunde, and family takes care of each other. Tears welled up in Tunde's eyes. Thank you, sir. I don't know how to repay you. You don't have to repay me, Dele said. Just keep working hard and make something out of yourself. That's all the thanks I need. That evening, Dele dropped Tunde off at his usual spot, promising to return the next day to begin making arrangements. As Tunde watched the car drive away, he felt a flicker of hope, unlike any he had known before. For the first time in years, Tunde allowed himself to dream of a future where he didn't have to struggle alone, a future where he could focus on his education and maybe even help others, just as Uncle Dele was helping him. The next morning, as promised, Uncle Dele arrived at Tunde's corner in a small van filled with surprises. He handed Tunde a neatly folded school uniform, new shoes, and a backpack filled with supplies, books, pencils, and even lunchbox. Tunde stared at the items, his eyes wide with disbelief. Uncle Dele, this is too much, Tunde said, his voice trembling. Naughty boy, Dele replied with a smile. It's the least I can do. You have worked so hard to get this far, and now it's time for you to focus on what truly matters, your education. Dele didn't stop there. He arranged for Tunde to stay in a small but clean apartment near the school. It wasn't fancy, but it had a proper bed, a desk for studying, and a tiny kitchen. For Tunde, it felt like a palace. This is your new home, Dele said, handing Tunde the key. You don't have to worry about rent or food. I will take care of it until you are able to stand on your own. Tunde couldn't hold back his tears anymore. Thank you, Uncle Dele. I don't know how to ever repay you. Dele placed a hand on Tunde's shoulder. You will repay me by staying in school and becoming the great person I know you can be. From that day on, Tunde's life changed dramatically. He no longer had to juggle work and school. With more time to study, he excelled in his class, quickly becoming one of the top students. His teachers were amazed at his progress and praised his dedication. One morning, during a school assembly, the headmistress, Mrs. Adebola, called Tunde to the front of the hall. Tunde is an example of hard work and resilience, she said. Despite his challenges, he had risen above them and continued to excel. Let's give him a round of applause. The entire school erupted in cheers, and Tunde felt a warmth in his chest. He had come so far, and he knew he was just getting started. As the weeks turned into months, Tunde discovered a love for science and mathematics. He spent hours reading about inventions, and how they made life better. His dream of becoming someone important started to take shape. He wanted to be an engineer. One day, while Tunde was studying at home, Uncle Dele visited with exciting news. "Tunde," Dele said, "I have enrolled you in a special program for talented students. It's a weekend class that focuses on science and engineering. I thought it would be perfect for you." Tunde's face lit up. "Really? Thank you so much, Uncle Dele. You deserve it, Tunde." Dele replied, "Keep working hard, and the sky will be your limit." The program was challenging, but Tunde thrived. He built small models and gadgets, impressing his instructors with his creativity and determination. For the first time, Tunde felt like his dreams were within reach. One evening, as Tunde and Uncle Dele sat together, Tunde asked, "Uncle, why are you doing all this for me?" Dele smiled. "Because I believe in you, Tunde. You remind me of your father. He was just as determined to make a better life for himself. Helping you is my way of honoring his memory." Tunde nodded, tears in his eyes. "I won't let you down, Uncle." "I know you won't," Dele said, patting Tunde's shoulder. "You have already come so far. Just keep going." With Uncle Dele's support, Tunde's life began to blossom. He was no longer the boy struggling to survive on the street. Determined to use his newfound opportunities to build a brighter future. Years passed, and Tunde's life transformed in a way he had never imagined. He graduated at the top of his class in the secondary school and earned a scholarship to study engineering at the prestigious university. Tunde and Sade parted ways after secondary school, as Tunde went on with his scholarship. Though their paths diverged, Tunde always carried the memory of her kindness and encouragement in his heart. With Uncle Dele's unwavering support, Tunde excelled in his studies, eventually graduating with honors. After graduation, Tunde secured a job at the top engineering firm in Lagos. His innovative ideas and hard work quickly gained recognition, and within a few years, he started his own engineering company. Tunde's journey from selling puff-puff on the streets to becoming a successful entrepreneur inspired everyone who knew his story. One bright morning, Tunde stood in his office, overlooking the bustling city. He held a piece of paper in his hand, a letter from a young boy who had heard his story. "Dear Mr. Tunde," the letter read, "I am just an orphan. I sell puff-puff and I dream of going to school. Please help me." Tunde felt a wave of emotion. He saw himself in the boy's words, and he knew what he had to do. Later that day, Tunde drove to the address on the letter. He found the boy barely older than he had been when he started selling puff-puff. The boy was shy and hesitant, but Tunde smiled warmly. "What is your name?" Tunde asked. "Daniel, sir," the boy replied, clutching his tray of puff-puff tightly. "Daniel, I was once just like you," Tunde said, "and someone helped me. Now, I want to help you. Are you ready to change your life?" The boy's eyes widened. "Yes, sir, I will do my best." Tunde nodded. "Then, let's get started." Tunde enrolled Daniel in school, just as Uncle Dele had done for him. He provided for the boy's needs, ensuring he had everything to succeed. Watching Daniel thrive reminded Tunde of his own journey and filled him with gratitude for how far he had come. A few years later, Tunde reflected on the people who had shaped his life. He decided to visit his former teacher, Mr. Okafor, to thank him for being a guiding light during his difficult years. When Tunde arrived at Mr. Okafor's modest house, the elderly teacher was surprised and delighted. "Tunde, look at you, a fine gentleman now," Mr. Okafor exclaimed. "Sir, I came to thank you," Tunde said, holding an envelope. "You believed in me when no one else did. Please, accept this gift as my way of saying thank you." Mr. Okafor insisted, but Tunde insisted. "Sir, this is just a token of my appreciation. Without your support, I wouldn't have made it this far." Mr. Okafor smiled warmly. "Tunde, I always knew you would do great things. Thank you for remembering me." A few years later, Tunde's life took another joyous turn. He met a kind and beautiful woman named Amara, who shared his passion for helping others. They fell deeply in love and got married in a grand ceremony, surrounded by family and friends, including Uncle Dele, who beamed with pride. Tunde and Amara built a beautiful home filled with love and laughter. They were blessed with 3 wonderful children, 2 boys and a girl, who brought endless joy to their lives. Tunde made it a point to teach his children the value of hard work, humility, and kindness, sharing with them the story of his journey from the streets to success. One evening, Tunde invited Uncle Dele to their home for dinner. The house was warm and inviting, filled with the sound of children's laughter. As they sat down to eat, Tunde turned to Uncle Dele with a smile. "Uncle, I have been waiting for this day. I want to thank you for everything you have done for me. Without you, I wouldn't be here." Dele chuckled. "You have done all the hard work, Tunde. I only gave you a little push." "It was more than a push," Tunde said. "You gave me a hope when I have none, and now I want to honor you." Tunde handed Uncle Dele a folder. Inside was a document showing a donation to a foundation Tunde had created in his uncle's name. The foundation would help children like Tunde and Daniel get educated and build a better future. Dele's eyes filled with tears. "Tunde, this is incredible. I am so proud of you." "It's the least I can do, Uncle," Tunde said. "You changed my life, and now I want to change the life of others." As the family laughed and ate together, Tunde thought about how far he had come. From a boy selling puff-puff on the street to a successful man with a beautiful family and a legacy of giving back. His journey was proof that with determination, kindness, and a little help, anyone could rise above their circumstances. That night, as Tunde tucked his children into bed, he whispered a silent prayer of gratitude. His life had come full circle, and he had everything he had ever dreamed of: a loving family, a successful career, and the chance to make a difference in the world. He and his family lived happily ever after, their home filled with love, laughter, and the hope for the future. The story of Tunde teaches us to stay humble, determined, kind, and grateful no matter how successful we become, and to never forget those who helped us in difficult times. Thank you so much for watching. Your love and your support mean the world to me. I would love to hear your thoughts. Please Share them in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more interesting African stories. See you on the next video. Bye!